In 1962, the U.S. Army built a truck 572 feet long that could cross open desert without a road. Today, only its cab survives. In 1964, Ford built a gas turbine semi that cruised at 70 miles an hour, then lost it for 40 years. In 1988, Peterbilt built a truck that returned over 11 miles per gallon, and drivers refused to buy it. 10 trucks, 10 ideas that arrived far too early, and every single one of them failed. Number 1. LeTourneau TC-497 Overland Train Mark II. R.G. LeTourneau was an earth-moving inventor from Longview, Texas, and he had one obsession that never left him: electric wheel motors. Not drive shafts, not axles, a generator making electricity and a motor buried inside every single wheel. In 1958, the U.S. Army handed him a contract that let him take that idea to its absolute limit. The problem the Army wanted solved was simple and brutal. In the Arctic and in any theater without roads or railways, supply convoys were useless. LeTourneau had already proven the concept in the 1950s with land trains that hauled freight to the DEW line radar stations across the far north. Now the Army wanted a bigger one. What he delivered was the TC-497 Overland Train Mark II, and it is still, more than 60 years later, the longest off-road vehicle ever built. Fully assembled, it stretched 572 feet. It rode on 54 wheels, and every one of those wheels had its own electric motor inside it. Power came from 4 Solar Saturn 10 MC gas turbines, each producing 1,170 horsepower. 1 turbine in the control car, 3 more distributed down the length of the train in dedicated power cars. That is 4,680 horsepower, driving a fully electric powertrain in 1962. The control car alone stood over 30 feet tall and had berths for 6 men, a galley kitchen, a toilet, and air conditioning. The train could carry 150 tons of cargo across terrain no wheeled vehicle had any business crossing. At around 20 miles an hour with an all-wheel steering system that made every trailer follow exactly in the tracks of the one ahead. So why did it die? 2 reasons. The first was thirst. Those turbines drank fuel at a rate that made the logistics of supplying the logistics vehicle a genuine problem. The second was the helicopter. By the time the TC-497 was running its test program at Yuma Proving Ground in Arizona, heavy-lift helicopters were entering service, and a helicopter could put cargo into a roadless valley in minutes instead of days. The train was obsolete before the paint dried. It never left Yuma. In 1971, it was sold at auction. Most of it was cut up, and today only the control car survives at the Yuma Proving Ground Heritage Center. Number 2. Ford Big Red Gas Turbine Truck. On the 28th of August 1964, Ford rolled a 13-foot-tall crimson semi onto the stage at the New York World's Fair. That same year, at that same fair, Ford was showing off a new car called the Mustang. History remembers the Mustang. Almost nobody remembers Big Red, and Big Red was the more radical machine by a mile. Under it sat Ford's Model 705 gas turbine, an engine Ford had developed in-house under a contract with the Department of Defense. It produced 600 horsepower and 855 pound-feet of torque. To put that in context, in 1964, a typical long-haul diesel was making somewhere between 200 and 300 horsepower. Big Red had double, sometimes triple, what the industry considered normal. The whole rig, tractor plus 2 trailers, measured 96 feet. The cab was fiberglass, shaped with wind tunnel data, mounted on air suspension, and the engineering was supervised by Roy Lunn, the same man behind the Ford GT40. Inside was a fully air-conditioned lounge with a kitchen with hot and cold running water, a bathroom with an incinerating toilet, and a television. It carried 280 gallons of fuel, cruised at a stated 70 miles an hour, and had a range of roughly 600 miles. Ford didn't just park it under a spotlight either. Big Red went on a cross-country promotional tour, running real miles on real highways, hauling real trailers. Number 3. TS3 Knocker. In 1954, a British firm put a diesel into production that had no cylinder heads and no valves, and weighed half as much as anything else making the same power. Nobody could work out why it wasn't the future. The Roots TS3 was designed by a four-man team under an engineer named Eric Coy, with one goal: build a diesel flat enough to hide under the floor of a cab-over truck, so three men could sit abreast with no engine hump between them. Coy's answer was an opposed piston two-stroke, 3 horizontal cylinders, 2 pistons in each firing toward one another, 6 pistons driving a single crankshaft through rocker arms. It made around 105 horsepower, fired twice as often as a 4-stroke its size, and hammered so loudly you could pick one out a street away. Drivers called it the common knocker. It died because the ordinary 4-stroke diesel caught up and got cheaper, and when Chrysler took over Roots, it killed the program. Production ended in 1968. Then it came back. A California company, Achates Power, spent 20 years reviving the exact architecture Coy drew, ran one in a Peterbilt hauling for Walmart, and beat the best modern diesel by up to 20%. Coy's 4 men were right. It just took 70 years to prove it. Number 4. Chevrolet Turbo Titan III. General Motors had been chasing the gas turbine since the early 1950s, and by the mid-60s it had built 2 turbine-powered test trucks, Turbo Titan I and Turbo Titan II, which were essentially rolling laboratories. The third one was not a laboratory. The third one was a statement. The Turbo Titan III appeared during the 1965 season of the New York World's Fair, and it looked like it had driven off a film set. A pearlescent fiberglass cab over body, headlights and turn signals that retracted into the bodywork when you didn't need them, an electrically operated tilt cab, a matching 40-foot stainless steel trailer built specifically to go behind it. Powering it was GM's GT309 turbine, badged Whirlfire. It produced 280 horsepower at a 4,000 RPM output shaft, geared down from an internal speed of around 35,000 RPM, and it made 875 pound-feet of torque at idle because that is how turbines behave. Critically, the GT309 used a regenerator, a heat exchanger that recovered exhaust heat and fed it back into the intake air. That was a genuine efficiency breakthrough, and it is the same fundamental logic that turbocharging and exhaust heat recovery use in trucks today. Behind it sat an Allison 6-speed automatic in a Class 8 tractor rated at a gross combination weight of 76,800 pounds. Automatic transmissions in heavy trucks would not become common for another 40 years. Worth mentioning, too. A year earlier, GM had shown the Bison, a show concept with twin turbines, 4-wheel steering, and modular cargo boxes designed to be swapped between vehicles, an idea that looks a lot like the intermodal container system that would go on to reorganize global trade. Number 5. Dodge Bighorn. Look at a Dodge Bighorn, and the first thing you notice is the hood. It is enormous, absurd, comically out of proportion with the cab sitting behind it. And that hood is the entire reason this truck belongs on this list. Dodge built that nose to swallow the biggest diesel engines in North America. Cummins Big Bore K-Series, a 19-liter monster that most trucks of the era physically could not cool. The Bighorn's radiator opening and cooling package were sized for horsepower levels the American trucking industry would not routinely demand until the late 1980s and 1990s. The standard engine was a Cummins 250, and you could go up from there through the Cummins range or to a Detroit Diesel 8V71. But the truck was engineered with headroom for far more. It was also obsessive about weight. Aluminium crossmembers, aluminium bumpers, aluminium battery boxes, aluminium fuel tanks, aluminium cab supports. Every pound saved is a pound of freight you can charge for. Lightweighting became one of the defining engineering battles of Class 8 trucking 20 years later. Now, honesty matters here. So let's be fair. The Bighorn was not futuristic everywhere. The cab was an old design, small and hot, and drivers who worked in them have never been shy about saying so. It was a truck of two halves, a powertrain and chassis philosophy pointed at the future, wrapped in a cab from the past. What killed it wasn't the cab, though. It was timing, and it was catastrophic. The Bighorn arrived just as the October 1973 oil embargo hit. Fuel prices spiked, freight rates collapsed, and the last thing any fleet wanted was a heavy-hauling flagship built around the thirstiest engines available. Chrysler's own finances were deteriorating, and here's the cruelest part. Dodge dealers largely refused to stock the trucks because the industry had already convinced itself Chrysler was about to abandon Class 8. That assumption became self-fulfilling. Total production across 1973, 1974, and 1975, 261 trucks. Then Dodge walked away from the Class 8 market and never came back. There is a strange, beautiful epilogue. Because so few were built, and because the surviving owners are fanatics, well over 100 Bighorns are still accounted for today. One of the highest survival rates of any commercial vehicle in American history. The market rejected it. Collectors never did. Number 6. Ford CL9000. By the late 1970s, Ford's cabover range was tired, and Ford knew it. So in 1978, the company launched the CL9000, and it was a genuine surprise, a properly modern, properly engineered Class 8 cabover from a manufacturer nobody expected it from. The headline feature was the cab itself. It sat on a 4-point air suspension system, which in a cabover matters enormously, because in a cabover you are sitting directly over the front axle with nothing ahead of you to soak up impacts. Ford paired that with a large glass area, a serious effort at interior noise reduction, an aluminium structure to keep weight down, and a dashboard laid out for a human being rather than for whatever fit. Engine options came from Cummins, Caterpillar, and Detroit Diesel. It was, for the driver, one of the nicest places to sit in American trucking, and then the ground moved twice underneath it. The first shift was the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, which deregulated interstate trucking, flooded the market with new carriers, and squeezed freight rates hard. Fleets stopped buying premium and started buying cheap. The second shift was fatal. In 1982, the Surface Transportation Assistance Act abolished federal overall length restrictions for tractor-trailers on the interstate system. Understand what that meant. The only real reason the American cabover existed was length law. If the total combination was measured bumper to bumper, then a short cabover engine tractor bought you more trailer. Remove the overall length limit, and that advantage vanishes overnight. Once it did, the conventional won on every remaining metric. Better ride, because the driver sits behind the front axle. Better crash structure, because there's an engine between you and the impact. Far easier servicing, because you lift a hood instead of tilting an entire cab. Better resale. Drivers preferred them, and in an industry where owner-operators buy the truck they want to be seen in, that is not a small thing. Cabovers dominated the American market until around 1986. By 1998, they were down to roughly 3% of Class 8 sales. The CL9000 line wound down around 1991, and in 1996 Ford sold its entire heavy truck business to Freightliner, where the trucks were rebadged as Sterling, a brand that was itself shut down in 2009. The CL9000 was not a bad truck. It was a very good truck, aimed with total precision at a configuration the United States Congress was about to make pointless. Number 7. Steinwinter Supercargo 2040. Every truck engineer in history has looked at a tractor-trailer and accepted a basic compromise. The tractor is a big box, the trailer is a bigger box, and there is a gap of turbulent air between them that you can never quite fix. Manfred Steinwinter, an engineer from the Stuttgart area, refused to accept it. His solution was to delete the tractor from the airflow entirely by putting it underneath the trailer. The Supercargo 2040, unveiled at the 1983 Frankfurt Motor Show, stood 1,170 millimeters tall, about 46 inches. That is lower than most sports cars of the era. The tractor was roughly 6.5 meters long, and when it was coupled up, the trailer's nose came forward and over the top of it. So the front of the vehicle was simply the front of the trailer, no gap, no stepped frontal area. Underneath sat a Mercedes-Benz V8 diesel, mounted low between the axles. Mercedes supplied the chassis for the prototype, with a 16-speed gearbox, air suspension all-round, anti-lock brakes, a limited slip differential, Recaro-style seats, and a bunk. The payoff was real. Roughly 18 meters of usable load length and around 150 cubic meters of cargo volume, which is close to a third more capacity than a conventional articulated rig within the same legal footprint. Less drag, more cargo, lower center of gravity, and a tractor that could be driven around town like a car when it wasn't hitched to anything. Number 8. Peterbilt Model 372. This is the one that hurts, because this truck was not a concept, not a prototype, and not a science project. It was a production Peterbilt that proved a number the industry insisted was impossible, and it was rejected anyway. The Model 372, launched in 1988, was the most aerodynamic cabover Peterbilt ever built and the last all-new cabover the company ever designed. The nose was a single curved shell that hinged forward for service access. Peterbilt's own figures put its drag at roughly half that of the Model 362 it sat alongside. In 1990, Peterbilt's product marketing team decided to prove the point in public. They took a 372, added a belly pan, nose and side skirts, gap seals, side extenders, and a matched trailer, and ran the thing across the country. It returned well over 10 miles per gallon. Real-world fleet reports of these trucks pulling standard loads sat above 11 miles per gallon, at a time when a typical Class 8 rig was managing somewhere between 5 and 7. That is not an incremental improvement. That is close to double the fuel economy of the average truck on the road. In 1990, the industry called it a football helmet. It called it Darth Vader. It called it a Winnebago. And it did not buy it. Part of the problem was timing. Again, the 372 arrived 6 years after the Surface Transportation and Assistance Act had already sentenced the American cabover to death. Part of it was resale. A strange-looking cabover is a hard truck to sell second-hand, and residual value is a line item on every fleet's spreadsheet. But the biggest part was culture. In American trucking, the truck is identity. Owner-operators wanted a long hood, chrome stacks, and a Model 379, and no fuel figure on a spec sheet was going to change that. Peterbilt built 772 examples in 6 years and canceled the program in 1993. Now look at what happened next. Trailer skirts, gap reducers, belly pans, side extenders, boat tails, integrated tractor-trailer aerodynamics, the entire aero package. The 372 war in 1990 became standard practice across North American trucking in the 2010s. Pushed by fuel prices and federal efficiency rules, Peterbilt demonstrated the whole thing 2 decades early, and the market laughed at the shape. Number 9. Labatt Streamliner. In 1936, a Canadian brewery put a truck on the highway that looked like it had driven out of the following century. Ontario banned beer advertising, so Labatt turned its delivery fleet into rolling billboards and hired Count Alexis de Sosnowski, the industrial designer behind some of the era's most beautiful cars, to shape them. What he drew was the first truly aerodynamic truck in the world. A fastback tractor, a matching arced trailer, a fin down the roof, the wheels fared in a wooden body tub skinned in aluminium over a white chassis, and a Fruithof trailer. It won Best Design at the 1939 New York World's Fair, and it was the first Canadian rig with air brakes and an anti-jackknife fifth wheel. And it wasn't just for show. In a 1937 test, a Streamliner ran 125 miles into a headwind and used 9% less fuel than an identical boxy truck carrying the same load. 9%? In 1937. The industry shrugged. Trucks stayed square for another 70 years, everything the modern aero truck obsesses over, closing the gap, smoothing the shape, cheating the wind. Labatt had proved on a beer run before the war. The fleet was retired by the mid-1950s. One restored Streamliner still tours shows today. Number 10. Freightliner Argosy. In North America, by the late 1990s, the American cabover was, commercially speaking, dead. It had fallen to around 3% of Class 8 sales. Every mainstream manufacturer had either abandoned the format or was about to. Freightliner looked at that and decided everybody else was wrong. The Argosy was previewed in 1998 as a safety concept vehicle, and the ideas in it were genuinely advanced. It had a near-flat cab floor, with engine intrusion cut to about 3 inches, meaning a driver could walk across the cab and into the sleeper without climbing over a doghouse. It had entry steps that pivoted outward for safer access, and because the tractor was short, the combination could legally pull a trailer of around 57 to 58 feet in the United States, giving cube-hungry fleets more box behind the same tractor. It entered mass production for 1999, replacing Freightliner's older cabovers, and it carried virtually the entire concept vehicle design into showrooms. Freightliner genuinely believed it would trigger a cabover revival. It didn't, not even slightly. The reasons were the ones that had been in place since 1982. Federal law no longer rewarded a short tractor on the interstate system, so the packaging advantage only mattered to a narrow slice of operators. Conventionals rode better over the front axle, gave the driver an engine as crash structure, cost less to maintain, and held their value. Servicing a cabover means tilting the entire cab, which is slower and needs clearance. And American drivers had spent 20 years learning to want a long hood. After the 2006 model year, Freightliner ended North American sales of the Argosy and shifted production entirely to export markets, Australia, South Africa, and elsewhere, where length laws still favor the format. It stayed in production for those markets until 2020. It was the last Class 8 cabover ever sold new in North America. And here's the irony. Flat floors, high visibility, tight maneuverability, maximum cube in minimum length. That is the specification sheet for the modern European truck, and it is the specification sheet for almost every electric urban delivery tractor now being designed. The Argosy wasn't wrong about the future. It was just built for the one market on Earth whose laws had already decided it didn't need one. So which one deserved to survive? The turbine semi, the cab under Steinwinter, or the Peterbilt that was doing 11 miles per gallon 35 years ago? Tell me in the comments.